Thank you so much. Let me start, or let us start with the history, because it's important to highlight that AI is not new. AI, although for you, maybe if you are young people in the audience, we have young people today. For the old people like me, AI is something that we have been working for a long time ago. So just to let you know, in the 56 is the first time that AI was announced officially in the academical forums during the Dartmouth conference. So Tim Minges or McCarthy, they were the fathers of AI. So we have a long history. The problem is that during this history, we have experimented different valleys and peaks along the life of AI. For example, we realized in the 70s that AI was not power enough because we didn't have, let me say, power computing enough. So can you imagine at the beginning, in the 50s, all the scientists were working with AI using these cards that they were introducing in the huge computers that they were fitting in a huge room. And also they were working with AI using pencil and notebooks, doing calculations. So this is not the way that we can have AI, no? The problem was this one. So when they realized that they needed more computation, more power, and they couldn't access to this kind of resource, well, we experimented the first winter in the 70s. But after Bill Gates and also Steve Jobs, both they promised to democratize the access to the power computing, installing or providing a home computer, personal computer in each home. Well, again, we had a very nice reborn of AI in the golden era, the golden years, in around mid 70s. Why? Because everyone has had a very nice computer, personal computer, maybe 64Ks or 88Ks, whatever we had in the past, in order to run this AI. But again, this boom that we experimented, again, they came again to a valley because we experimented a second AI winter. And do you know why? The reason was that we realized that we needed more and more space. We needed more and more data storage, and we didn't have this data storage. So this is happening always along the history of the humans. So once we experiment and we squeeze a technology until the limits, well, if the technology is not advancing enough, the technology is completely, forget it. Well, this is what happens. But we had good news. At the beginning of the 21st century, we were experimenting a new wave of new technologies. It was the cloud technologies. The cloud technologies allows to democratize the data storage. So today, for example, you have 15 gigabytes of data for free, only creating a Gmail account. So that was completely, amazing science fiction in the past. 15 gigabytes for free. Well, the democratization of the data storage is also allowing or accelerating the access to AI. So remember, we have these two great moments in the history since the 50s, in the past century, two great moments where we characterize what really AI means: power computing and data, in this case, data storage. Okay, so this is the reason. But everyone nowadays are talking about AI, and we're talking about AI like a Gen AI. We talk about DeepSeek, we talk about Bedrock, we are talking about Gemini, we talk about ChatGPT, these giants of generative AI. But when we work for science and when we work for pharmaceutical industry, we are working for science with a main goal, thinking always and putting in the focus always patients. We have to be very conscious, we have to be very aware, because nowadays, at least in the European zone, we are not allowed to use this kind of generative AI tools directly in order to generate or to create drugs or to manufacture drugs. We will see how we can use Gen AI in GXP environments, but we cannot use it for specific GMP purposes when we have a direct impact of the AI output on the drug manufacturing. It's important that you know that generative AI is not only the only AI that we have. Actually, we have different kinds of AI. So, for example, machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, but we have neural networks like a subset of machine learning, and we have deep learning as a subset of neural networks. And finally, we arrive to generative AI and large language models that they are subsets of deep learning. So when you think or you talk with your friends, with your kids, with your family about AI, remember that AI is not only those boxes that they are at the end of this chain. AI is all these things. And remember again, in pharma, when we have AI with direct impact into GMP purposes in Europe, we only can use those kind of AI. Okay, nowadays it's just a draft with the Annex 22 that we will talk about that later on, but it's important to highlight that. Okay, good. So knowing that and knowing that every time that we talk about AI, we have to take in consideration all the kinds of AI that we have. Let me come with some aspects that you have to know around the agentic AI concept. I don't know, probably you are experts, and this is something a little bit boring, but I think that it's important that we have an alignment on the concept of the agentic AI. And in order to start with the concept, in order to have a clear idea about what really means agentic I would like to bring two classical examples, two classical philosophic exercises that I would like to share with you. Actually, these two exercises, I'm also teaching the same exercises at the university, and I think that they are clarifying very well what agentic AI could mean. The first one is the Turing test. I don't know if you know Turing. Turing was a brilliant British mathematician. Actually, Turing died 2 years before AI was announced during the Dartmouth conference. So that means a lot. This guy was a great visionary describing these kind of things. How computers, how AI science, or how this kind of human logic emulation can be classified or can be understood by humans. And he proposed the following test in order to know if a machine or a logic system, mathematical system, could be interpreted as a human thought or a human interpretation. And the Turing test is described like that. Imagine that you are typing in your laptop a question, and you are sending this question to someone that is on the other side of the world. Okay, you don't know if in the other side of the door there is a human or there is a machine. Okay, so the Turing test says that if you do a question to the other side and the other side is answering to you in a very similar way as a human would do, you can consider that this mechanism that is behind the door can be a human thought or a human reflection consideration. This is very, that could be a very silly thing, but it is really a very philosophical problem. Because if in the other side we have machine that is able to emulate very well human capabilities, from the Turing perspective, this answer or this system can be considered as a human based way of thinking. Okay, well, this kind of tests were performed along the time, and as you can imagine, in the 50s and the 70s, the Turing test was never passed by a machine. This Turing test was always, well, failure because the machines were not able to emulate in the same way the answers or the thoughts that humans we can do. Okay, well, my question for you is, do you think that nowadays, with the tools that we have, we can pass the Turing test with these LLMs that we can access for free? I'm thinking on DeepSeek or ChatGPT or Cloud or all these tools that we have everywhere and for everything. Do you think that they could pass the Turing test? because based on this test, and it was accepted partially by the scientific community as a good test in order to know if the machine could be considered as a human or not. Well, the thing is that in the questions that scientists and philosophers they were describing in this Turing test, they include emotional and personal experience. Like, for example, what does the smell of bagel mean to you? Of course, a machine cannot say anything about that. But maybe if you do this question to the LLMs that you can have access, Copilot or whatever, maybe you can get a very human interpretable answer. Please, if you have time this Sunday and this Sunday is running, you can try with, it's raining, you can try with these examples and check if your machine or the system that you are working with, probably in your job, is passing the Turing test. If it is passing the Turing test, based on this philosophy rationale, the system could be interpreted like a human-based. But I would like to also to present another one. This is another philosophical problem test. It is called the Chinese room experiment. Okay, so it was proposed by John Searle in the 80s. So this guy already knows that AI exists and AI is working, and AI is a scientific discipline from the maths part of the university. And he proposed this experiment. Imagine that you are this person and you are, well, putting in Chinese, assuming that you don't know Chinese, okay? You're an English person or a Spanish person, and you're writing down in Chinese a question or some comment. You throw your paper with this question inside this pipe, and inside the room, there is a person that has a very amazing English rule book that it emulates the software, the program, the model. And this book contains that for every single question contains which is the symbols in Chinese that they have to write down in order to answer the question that is coming from the other side. So this huge book, I would say this English rule book that is translating Chinese sentence to Chinese answers, is managed by an English person that doesn't know anything about Chinese. Good. The output in the other side is the response of this question. And well, as this book is good, the answer that the other person in the other side is getting is the perfect one. My question for you is, this Chinese room that is answering Chinese questions, of course, the person that is managing the mechanism doesn't know anything about Chinese, but is efficiently working and efficiently providing the right answer that the other guy is expecting for in the other side. Do you think that that could be considered like a thinkable or rationable machine in order to work with in science, in pharma, in general, in other sectors? Well, this is my question for you. I know that this is very philosophical, but this is in what we work in the AI field. So for the AI expert that we work all the days in the AI, it's not only maths, it's not only algorithms. Also, we think in this kind of philosophical ideas in order to understand how we humans, we need to work and we need to understand different ethics and regulations and, of course, this kind of philosophical considerations about AI. Now, I would like that you take these two experiments for you and you try to think on that and to answer by yourself based on the use that you are doing with AI, with this generative AI. If you consider that behind the prompt that you are using, the machine that is working can work in the same rules than Chinese room or the Turing test is working as expected. Okay, good. Well, it is needed to make the land. So we are now landing to the agentic AI concept. Now, let me share with you the theoretical framework of how really works agentic AIs. Okay, well, before to arrive to the agentic AI, it's very important to describe how transformers works. Transformers are the first step. Okay, transformers are doing some tasks in order to modify, in order to adapt the statements, the sentence that you are prompting in the text box that you're using in order to have interaction with your large language model. And is the process that this huge AI system is following in order to understand what is happening. But in this case, sorry, I would like to start with this statement, with this sentence. Aizon improve yields, reduce deviation, and ensure product quality in GXP by means of AI. I'm prompting that into an LLM system. The first thing that the transformers are doing is the so-called tokenization. Tokenization means that the LLM system is able to isolate each element of the statement that you are introducing. As you see here, commas are part of the tokens. Dots are part of the tokens. So every time that you prompt something, remember that if you are lazy and you don't include commas or separators, it will be more difficult for the LLM to understand what you are saying. You can avoid to write to be polite. You can avoid hello, my friend, or please, or remember, you are talking to a machine. So it's not necessary that you are polite always. But it's important that you include all these syntax elements like commas or dots in order to make easier, in order to be more accurate with the result that you are looking for. Okay, so this is what transformers are doing with the tokenization process, isolating each element on the statement. Afterwards, after this tokenization, we have a first transformer. The first transformer is creating links between each element on the statement and other elements on the same statement. So using this syntax based on the Spanish system syntax or the English syntax or the whatever language we are using, this transformer is making links between these tokens that has been already identified. For example, the system is able to relate yield with improves, yields with product, GXP with quality, and AI with improves. Okay. Second step, the second transformer is analyzing each word and is characterizing each type of word. So in that moment is where all the data that has been used to train the LLM, all these documents, websites, web content, everything that is in the internet and everything that has been used to train the version 4.3 of this LLM I'm running or I'm using is used in order to associate a type of aspect or concept with the word that has been tokenized before. In that way, this transformer is associating the Aizon word to an organization type. Improves is related with an action. Yield has been associated with the manufacturing KPI. GXP is associated with the regulatory term, and AI with technology. This is the kind of things that transformers are doing before to give you an answer. As you see here, every time that we do that, there is a lot of computation behind. So now thinking in green, if you want to avoid extra electricity consumption, thinking in our world, please try to avoid including these words that they don't bring any kind of substance or essence to the statement, like hello or please, how, good morning, and these kind of things. Please try to go ahead and be very accurate with this syntax, because as you see, the agentic systems are using these transformers before to go to the agentic process itself. Well, if you're good so far, we can move forward with the agentic itself. But it's important that you know those steps. Tokenization, transformation, first part, transformation, second part. Tokenization, relating words inside the statement, associating categories and classifications or families to the words that has been identified as tokens. Good. Finally, I think that we are already ready to understand what really means agentic AI. Well, Do you remember this is the sentence that we sent to this agentic AI? Only it's a positive statement. So we are not asking for anything special. So we are just saying that Aizon improves yields, reduce deviation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, this is the sentence. The agentic AI system has processed these tokens and understanding every single token and relating every single token with the rest, and also creating context around the sentence based on the family where each token belongs to. What an agentic AI system does? Well, the agentic AI is doing that. First of all, the large language model is understanding the statement. Now, the agent is planning to do something based on the families and the context that has been created. Based on this plan, the agentic AI decides and acts based on the decisions, and is evaluating if the act that is proposing is good or not. And for the reason, the agentic AI systems are asking to you, remember that every time that you make a question to ChatGPT, for example, or to Copilot, at the end of the sentence, the agentic AI system is proposing to you something. Based on what you are answering, the agentic AI is closing the loop and getting your feedback in order to refit again the system. So, based on the statement that we already used, the agentic is asking, based on this understanding, planning, deciding, acting, and evaluating, is proposing what does improved yields mean operationally? Which data do I need? Which system should I query? Do I need to generate recommendations? So this is real proofs, real evidence of what an LLM is asking. So it's acting based on agentic AI technology, based on these actions. So now the agentic AI is waiting for our feedback in order to refit again and to start the loop decisions and to fit the mechanism, adding more context, more tokens, more relationships until the LLM is, well, accurating the answer. So this is how an agentic AI works. An agentic AI works always, remember that it's working in this loop, this virtuous loop, plan, decides, acts, evaluates, and iterates. Good. So this is the first part of the theoretical introduction. Maybe it's time for a full question. In order, if you are aware, if you agree or not agree, or if you disagree, or also to know which is your experience, no? If could use an AI agent to handle one task for you immediately, what would it be? Which is the action that you would like to use with agentic AI? So you have 4 options, and maybe based on your answers, we can comment and we can share with the audience.
Excellent.
I know that
shows the poll is running.
Okay, good. So I know that it's a little bit boring, always this theoretical framework, but it's needed in order to be aligned, no, in the same level of understanding, and also the vocabulary. It's important to talk in the same terms.
Mm-hmm. Although sometimes, Tony, I'm still tempted to say please and thank you to the LLM, but I try to avoid that.
I actually seen a very funny meme when the robots took over and they killed everybody. They saved the one person, said, "Oh, he was always polite to me."
That's true. So, but
this
that
guy
is,
always said, "Thank you, please and thank you."
That's true. Actually, remember the first law of the third law of the Isaac Asimov. So the robot never can hurt people.
Mm.
Good. So I think we got so some answers still coming in, but I think we got most of the answers. So I think this is quite a challenging question because there are so many good things here and you ask them to choose only one. So I think it makes it difficult. So let's see the results.
Predicted deviations before they happen, automatically compiling investigation, that good. Real-time chatting with data. Automated to final go, no go. So from the audience perspective, it seems that automatically compiling investigation, I think that you are using very well LLMs. I think that you are advanced audience because it's precisely is one of the main tasks that we can use generative AI in order to work with in pharma. Remember one thing that it's important and it's very related with the topic of today. AI has been intended, has been designed to emulate human capabilities in an automated way. There are plenty of definitions of AI, plenty, thousands, maybe as many definitions humans we have in the world. But one of them is that AI is a mechanism that is able to emulate human capabilities 24/7. So humans, we are very limited. We are very good when we have inventions, we have intuition, we are very creative. Well, we have today AI systems that they are very creative, but also humans, we are very creative. But we are not good enough in order to repeat the same thing 24/7 in a systematic way, in an objective way. So compiling investigation results or investigation values, it's a very systematic task that we can delegate in intelligent systems. So this is very good. Predicting deviations is also very good because if we train the model with the right data, of course we can get the perfect output. But as far as we are using this kind of actions in Europe for GMP purposes, we cannot do it in a blind way. We have to put always human in the loop. We will see that later. So, but this is good. This is good because we have a very advanced audience. Kevin, do you have something else to add?
No, I think you pretty well covered it, and I think it makes sense that only 13% of people said automating the final go, no-go release decision, because I know that's kind of the final element of, I know release is so important, but I do think hopefully we'll give you some more confidence today that AI can also be a tool to better assist with that as well. And Toni will definitely touch on the regulatory aspects towards the end, but the human in the loop, as we've heard many, many times in this industry, is still very important.
Yeah. So probably if you agree, all the audience, I would like to mention which is the exact or the real meaning of human in the loop, because there are plenty of definitions of what means human in the loop. No, maybe we can discuss that later. Good point. So summarizing, agentic AI is not just proposing like the Chinese room. Is not just proposing an answer. The agentic AI works like the Turing test, because the Turing test was proposing a system that is able to interact dynamically with a human as if it was a human. So agentic AI must be related with the Turing test and not with the Chinese room. Okay. So if you have at least this theoretical concept, I will be very glad because this is summarizing what really the agentic AI means. It's emulating human capabilities on the other side of the screen. Okay, and if you want, you can discuss philosophically if it makes sense, if it could be considered like a initial evolution of other human forms, or whatever philosophical discussion you can have, no? But this is the idea. Agentic AI is a smart system that is turning it into a structured plan and iterates continuously. So the good point is that nowadays these agentic AIs they are always working the same way. Remember the flow is planning, is acting, is evaluating, and is making the loop. No, so we can identify this pattern when you are interacting with the LLMs, with agentic systems. But probably in the next weeks, I'm not talking in years. In the next weeks we will see an evolution. So we will see how these 4 steps that agentic AI systems they are doing nowadays will evolve to other more complex rules in order to emulate more and more human capabilities. Okay. Good. Well, so Finally, this is just an example about how we're going to do. Remember that based on any sentence that you share with an agentic AI system, the agentic AI nowadays, today, they will understand the sentence, they will plan, they will decide, act, evaluate, and iterate. So an example of plan is, well, based on, this is something that is real, so we tried that with an LLM, and based on this sentence, Aizon improves yield, reduce deviation, blah, 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 the system was able to say, well, retrieve latest batch data, detect deviation patterns, compare yield against baseline, and suggest optimization actions. So these 4 steps for the internal plan that is proposed by NLM are really, really good. And this plan is I would say, is identical that any plan proposed by humans in a GXP environment. So we have to be very concise, and we have to be very accurate with the prompt. Remember, the prompting engineering, we call that prompt engineering. The prompt is everything. So if you want to be accurate and you want to get good results, please take your time in order to elaborate very well your prompt. Okay, because this is the entry point. Good. So second poll question before to go to the first demo. The question says, when you need to perform root cause analysis, how long does it typically take you to gather all the necessary historical data? We're talking about minutes, we're talking about hours, days, or maybe weeks. Probably if you make the product quality review, probably you will take weeks. But what happens with a root cause analysis in a deviation, which is the usual time that you need in order to collect all the data? Mm-hmm.
And even when you do get the data, as you know, Tony, there's a rule in data science. A lot of times people say it's about, 80/20 or 80% data cleaning. So I mean, even when you get all the data, it's often a data cleansing exercise, and then you have to merge it all together, and there's always nuances with each data source. So a lot of complexity and things to account for. So
Yeah. And maybe this is a very good point, Kevin. Maybe it's a very good moment to introduce a little bit the concept of human in the loop. When a data scientist that is very good is analyzing the data in order to make the cleanup, as Kevin mentioned, this person is facing two classical problems like, well, in this cell, so I don't know, I'm working with 100 patients, and my patients are represented by rows in a spreadsheet, and I have different attributes that I am analyzing in a clinical trial. I have 20 parameters that I am analyzing. If I have a null in a specific column, in a parameter that I am measuring for a specific patient, what should I do? As a data scientist, it's very difficult to take the right answer or the right decision. What to do with this null? Should I delete the full column? I mean, the full attribute for all the patients? Should I delete this patient from the data set? These kind of decisions are very hard to make by a data scientist. It's for that reason that we always recommend to work with with the subject matter expert. The subject matter expert can make their decision, for example, to interpolate the value or whatever decision that they make. No, but this is the role or the player, the play game that subject matter expert, a human in the loop, should interpret in this kind of use cases. We have now the poll question. We're needing days to collect data for our root cause analysis. So my question for you is now, well, this effort in days is mainly based in your personal effort, collecting the data from the different data sources. Is this effort delegated to the IT teams because you are opening a ticket and you are requesting the data coming from this batch, in this operation, in granulation, or whatever? Or is a more common or a group effort that different teams are doing, no? So probably these days are multiplied because it's not only the time that you are waiting, it's maybe because we have to multiply for all the people that is involved on that. Now imagine that you can delegate this effort in a machine. So Kevin, sorry.
And I think that's exactly what we'll go into next. So that's a good segue, Tony. If you go into the next slide, I can kind of um, set it up from an Aizon perspective, because obviously when from an Aizon perspective, agentic means something very special, as we have a new agentic studio that we have just released that I'll give a demo of here in a minute. But just to give a perspective on where Aizon is coming from, our technology is about unifying your disparate data sources for the life sciences, biotech, pharma manufacturing industry, um, but trying to apply AI on top of that data, because we know data is such a large asset and the pharma manufacturing sector produces tons of it. So we need to get insight from this data. And a lot of times the data is an afterthought and used when you have a deviation, you go back, look through the paper, and you try to justify. So our mission is to democratize the use of AI and accessibility to your data. Hence the poll question, how long does it take you to get that data? So at Aizon, we for our customers, we try to set up robust data pipelines to automatically capture all of the relevant data to accurately reflect the process that we're studying, that we're integrating. And ultimately, we do this what we call the data fabric layer. And this is a contextual layer where you may have at one site you have a SCADA system, and then another site a Pi historian, and then a Delta V. And maybe some of it has batch context and some of it doesn't. How do you unify all of that data from different systems, some have missing values like the nulls, like Tony was talking about? How do you align that properly and make sense of it? So there's a big effort to create this contextual data fabric that is meaningful for your organization. And once you've done the good work of setting up that meaningful data fabric and properly contextualizing your data, then you can apply uh, a very robust agentic studio on top of that. And I see there's a question on the electronic batch record. This is just that's one of our products that can also be as a data source for our overall unified layer, where we actually do the contextualization and deploy AI-driven applications on top of that. So the main focus here, we want to talk about the Agentic Studio. Go to the next one. So this is where, as Tony was mentioning, the word delegate. So we're delegating all of this, having to retrieve the data and set up these data pipelines. All that work that you typically have to do when you're trying to make sense of data and get insights and build an application. So we actually have a kind of like a chat GPT like interface where you can use natural language, you transform your questions into the dashboards and insights that you actually want. And then you can iterate, as Tony mentioned. You can actually click on different sections of that dashboard that you've built and provide more context. You could ask for an enhancement. You could say, convert this from a vertical bar chart to a horizontal bar chart. Things like that are very doable. And really, this just opens the door for many things. I mean, you're democratizing the access to the data. You don't have to hire a bunch of consultants to come in and integrate new systems, build reports. Then you need a change. You have to do a change order. So it's really about putting it at your fingertips and using natural language. And why don't we just hop into a demo then? So I will share my screen, Tony. And let's see. All right. All good? Can you see that, Tony?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So we're in the studio here, and we've created a new project. So I'm just gonna start the prompting. So let's get into it. So what is our prompt here? So what we want to do is I say get the batches from this entity. This is an entity that has all the different batch IDs. And we want to first use one of the batches to understand what the components represent. This is for the underlying architecture. We want to create a batch release dashboard with an emphasis on the most recent batch. We want to compare the single recent batch CPPs and final yield against all the historical top performing batches and verify that the current batch falls within the expected normal operating range. And then create an executive summary section that provides a clear proceed. Now that is very critical. Let's see if the agentic can properly pick up on that. Proceed release recommendation based on successful verification. And if any parameter drifts significantly from the top quartile average, flag it as a variance to monitor. And we even say, hey, here's some LLM type feature, give it a clean Power BI style interface. So many people are familiar with that. So we feed it in and it starts building all of the different connections. So you immediately say now it's thinking. It tells you it's thinking. It's fetching the different batches. It's doing a complexity assessment. It's building in all the API connections to that unified contextual data fabric that I mentioned earlier. So we have the batches in there. They each have different names. The data is contextualized. And now this is just building the code for a dashboard. So that is basically what the agent is doing is there's different agents to go in and say, hey, I need to make a connection to this data lake. I need to build, interpret what this means. And then I need to build what is the plan, as Toni mentioned, what do I plan to build? And so it's taking that natural language, tokenizing it, vectorizing it, and then it's delegating to the different agents. And ultimately, what you get from this is just all of the underlying code for your dashboard. And a lot of questions we get on this is, oh, what if it hallucinates or is it going to make up data? No, it leverages what it's doing is just creating that code. So think of it as a massive accelerator to getting the dashboard and the insights that you need. Because normally you would have to build all of this yourself. It could take a few weeks. But now you could just, with natural language, at least get your dashboard to that 99% state, and then you can iterate from there. So you can see it's doing a lot of construction behind the scenes. It is building out different React components in the background. And now it's actually giving you a summary of what's been built, just like a chat GPT like interface. And the executive summary section, it tells us it's got that intelligent analysis engine and even the Power BI style interface, it calls that out. Gives you an overview of the key features, and then you can approve this. So now on the right side, what pops up is your actual application, and it's building it out, it's retrieving all the data, making all the API connections to the underlying data lake. And here we go. So immediately what I see is this is very interesting that the latest batch is actually a batch release decision of hold. So it said a hold is recommended because 3 parameters are out of spec. So remember, this is a usable interactive dashboard, and this is the initial development of this, and we haven't modified anything. It looks like 10 out of 19 parameters were checked, and it even created a confidence score of 53%. So this is where kind of it goes back to what Toni was saying, the human in the loop. Ultimately, if you were to publish this and use this for your own purposes, you're also going to want to know what goes into that 53%. You need to be able to understand what all of these mean and be sure you're interpreting your dashboard correctly. So you can always go back and review the underlying code and do your own quality assurance testing to be sure it meets your needs. Now it's even flagging which variances to monitor at the bottom there. So viscosity, final yield, let's see, it analyzed over 1,000 historical batches. I see that penicillin concentration was out of spec. Then you can see various parameters here that say, had a variance, had a pass, had an OOS. And once again, the agent did all of this. This is it acting as the human here, making all the decisions on the colors. Yellow, red, green. Green is good. That's the LLM understanding that historically green is typically associated with good. We didn't have to tell it that. But you could with this Agentic Studio, if you click on any item on the right, you can then isolate the context to that component, and then you can go back to the chat on the left and request additional features or provide feedback about the dashboard. So I think it's very interesting to note that we did in the beginning, we called out that proceed statement, like should we be able to proceed? And in the end, what did we find? The dashboard picked up on that and it said, do not proceed, hold. So that's amazing that we were able to do that so quickly. But once again, I'll reiterate, it is because you have you've done the work of building that contextual data fabric layer as well. And you have to and so someone's got to do the work to be able to align all of these systems together. And you can use agentic AI as an accelerator to get to that point as well, to help you contextualize your data across all these legacy systems and all these different data models. You can use LLMs to accelerate how to do this mapping to create your contextual data fabric, and then use agentic AI on top of that. So I hope, and I'll go more into some of these apps and some features later on, but I just wanted to give you an overview of this Agentic Studio here. All right. I'll stop sharing that video for now, Toni.
I was answering some questions.
Very nice.
There is very interesting questions. Let me share the screen again. By the way, very good presentation, Kevin.
Why, thank you.
Well, good. So probably all the audience is thinking about, well, this is nice, the feature is very nice, so we can dedicate our time in something that is providing more value to the company. But what about the regulations? So we have to be aware that we are working in a regulated environment and that requires to follow specific good practices. Good. So first thing, please believe me, regulators are not blocking anything. Regulators are pushing in order to use technologies like AI in order to be more efficient, in order to ensure more quality, less shortcuts, in order to provide the right medicine, the right moment for the right patient always. So we have a lot of groups. So in Europe, like for example, this coordinated plan in artificial intelligence that was started in 2021, this reflection paper for the use of AI in Europe that at the end has been translated into Annex 22. We have the considerations of the use for AI in regulatory decision making from the FDA in January 2025, so 1 year ago. So we have a lot of different good perspectives. I would like to highlight some of them, not all of them, but at least some of them. This guidance coming from the FDA is very good because it's proposing system and mechanism to evaluate, to assess how the model must be managed, must be governed in order to be sure that is not or this is well, let me say, distributed and managed along the life cycle. So the FDA is proposing two axes, so which is the model influence and which is the decision consequence of the AI output. Based on these two axes, you can determine if your model can be classified as high risk or low risk. Based on this classification, you have to mitigate the risks with all the controls that you can put in place depending on which is the purpose. If you are producing drugs or you are producing a medical device, if the AI is just part of the chain or is the last final decision or is helping the last decision, depending on which moment you are using AI along the life cycle of the drug, you can establish the risk and you can implement all the mitigations in place. So this document is very good, but I would like to highlight that this is not the only one. So we have plenty of documents that we are using along the world. No? So for example, we have in Canada a combination effort between UK, Canada, and the US in 2021. We have this the law, the framework that we have by law in Europe is this AI Act. We have 367 pages where we describe how to use AI in the best way for European citizens. So we have everything in place, okay? Everything in place. Good. The good part is that it's the first time in the history, and I think that it is very important to be highlighted. It is the first time in the history that the regulation is ahead of the industry. As you can imagine, regulators only can establish regulations and good practices based on something in technologies that they are used already by the industry. For example, with spectroscopy, with HPLCs, with all the technologies that we are using in pharma has been used first by pharma and later on has been regulated by the regulators. It's the first time in the history that the regulators are proposing guidelines before the pharma is broadly adopting a technology. And that means a lot, believe me. You have to think about why regulators are moving ahead the industry, why they are pushing to use. So this is a very clear signal that we have to do it. Actually, for example, we have a very nice news coming from December 2025. So just a couple of months ago, the European Medicine Agency announced that they plan to reform the full European pharmaceutical legislation. The full European, this is a huge effort. And here you have the list. There are more, of course, there are more items. But one of the items that they are dedicating more effort is into data and AI in medicine regulation. So they want to reformulate everything around that topic, of course, others, but this is one of them. And that means a lot. That means a lot. And again, a very nice announcement that I think that it's important to share with all the audience. I think that this is not very common to see that in this case, two regions, Europe and the US, they put together a joint effort in order to set up common principles for AI in medicine development. Please take a look because we have 10 commandments that they are really, really good to have sticked in the world in order to know how to apply AI in the real world for pharma. If you want more details and you are advanced and you want to validate AI, let me say for GXP or for non-GXP purposes, but you want to start validating AI, we published an article also. This model is already published by Bioforum, but we describe all the details about how to validate AI based on the classical artifacts that you already know, user requirement, function specification, decision specification, blah, 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 the IQ, OQPQ. So you have here all the elements involved in the AI, okay? So here we have a cheat sheet that you can use in order to validate AI. But if you want, you can download for free this AI validation model that was published by Bioforum. You will see that the same classical B to validate systems. As you see here, we have a full risk management process along the full life cycle of all the elements involved in AI, data, algorithm, model, and model acceptance and model monitoring. So risk management is always there. Answering one of the questions that we had in the chat, humans will be always there. So we are not gonna lose our job. But of course, we need to improve, we need to evolve, no? We need to understand how the new world is working because we will need to add our rational, our common sense in order to establish this risk assessment, thinking always in humans, thinking always in patients. So we're not gonna lose our job. We are gonna improve the process in operations, applying the human rational in the AI aspects, okay? Well, probably you have already listened to the new draft Annex 22 in Europe. It's describing very well how to apply AI in drug manufacturing, GMP. So very quickly, I created a table where we have the difference, the discrepancy between how the European Medicine Agency in the Annex 22 is considering different topics around AI and how the FDA is considering in their draft. One of the most important things I would like to highlight is this one. Generative AI and LLMs in Europe, explicitly, the European Medicine Agency nowadays in the draft, remember it's a draft, it's not approved yet, explicitly excludes generative AI and LLMs from critical GMP users. Of course, you can use in non-critical GMP, always requiring human in the loop. In the US, the FDA does not exclude explicitly AI or LLMs, but they highly recommend, to apply risk-based principles regardless of the model. So if you are using deterministic models, or you are using probabilistic models, or you're using LLMs, you should always work with a risk-based system. This is the two main discrepancies that I would like to highlight today. Of course, there are many, but this is not the forum to explain. But at least that. So, Kevin, do you want to start with this one?
Yep, sure thing.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sorry, I had to find the unmute. Yeah, so I mean, basically, we are at the point where, as I already demonstrated, we're asking the questions, and you can get the app right now. So it's with this Agentic Studio, you're getting it at your fingertips immediately, and you can just using natural language. So here I want to emphasize again. So. And I know there were some questions on the contextual data fabric. How long does that take to set up? Ultimately, it will depend on the overall complexity. Here we've listed out like all of the different systems, and even there's Excel files, there's multiple sites. So it really depends on the complexity. We've seen companies that have, 30 plus sites, and they've acquired them, and every site has a different system. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. So that is an important effort, and I just want to emphasize that again here, to be able to get to this application layer. So, all right, if we get to and so this one I think is very important here. So I just wanted to show an example of this first, and then I can show it to you in an application in a minute. There's a lot of questions we get on feature engineering or how to bridge different data sources. So one of the big things with that, I know someone asked about the EBR earlier. You can use a platform like Aizon has to do a lot of things and to bridge this data gap. So if context is available, we always prioritize where context is and the reliability of that. So if it's coming from an EBR, we would choose to rely on that. If no context rules are available, for some customers, we will build in the context based on using agents, and we can actually build in context rules where we use level indicators, for example, and we create automatically we can create 100 entities in the platform that monitor all of these different data flows, create this context, and automatically create these feature aggregations. So we create, for some customers, we'll create like reports that are automatically emailed based on these results. So they want to look at min temperatures, max temperatures, averages, and is anything starting to drift, and send alerts, or could I view that automatically in a dashboard and with all the contextual information in one place? And I'll show you that in a minute. So I think this is just critical to highlight, and you can extend this to any complex aggregation as well, or complex variable creation. You could look at the rolling average or the rolling median of something over the last 20 batches of two different parameters multiplied by each other and divided by another parameter. I mean, you can do any sort of complex type of computation and feature engineering that you would like. If we go to the next one. And just another example, importance of context here. This is kind of one of our fake companies we've created, Adaptive Biologics. It's a penicillin manufacturer. So in the bottom left there, you're actually seeing the context, real context from the process, and we actually have this on a simulator. And so we're constantly producing batches at Adapta, and you can see the context right there in the bottom left, the Gantt chart of each operational phase. And then we have we've configured different alerts on that screen as well. And then you can see all the historical signatures, approvals, reviews, anything that you would expect from your batch record also could be shown in tabular format, for example, on the right side. So just another example of how you can bridge these data gaps. And actually, well, I'll go ahead and go into this, and then I'll go into a demo. But ultimately, with the right technology and the right data fabric, you can rapidly accelerate many different operational areas of your organization. I just put a few here that are relevant to this group here. Definitely from a batch review standpoint, accelerating that overall time to market. It could be that we've developed batch review applications where we use agentic AI to, we can look over the different SOPs and your batch records and flag anomalies automatically that normally take weeks. And we can compile an entire report that reviews thousands of pages in a matter of minutes now. And once again, it's an accelerator. It's a starting point. It doesn't mean it replaces the human. It means it gives you your starting point. It gives you your top 20 areas to investigate first, instead of it being an open field and you having to go to 5 different silos and download the data, compile it in a report, and then get your results. You can have it at your fingertips. Compiling the artifacts for your PQR. That's a big one that we've been working on a lot of these recently, because I love these types of things because everyone has this problem and it's always in different systems. That's the nature of a PQR. You don't get all your data from one system. So if you can have all your systems feeding in one application, you can begin to build these artifacts as well. And just any type of dashboard and insight development. As I showed with the Agentic Studio, you can build your own. So if you do have a question that you don't already have a dashboard built for, you can build it yourself. And especially with root cause analysis, which I can show now. So maybe
Do you want to do the demo? Or do you
yeah,
want to do?
we could go into the poll since we're here. Why not?
Okay.
Let's see. What is the single biggest factor delaying your batch release process today? We have reviewing manual and paper-based, investigating deviations and out of spec, waiting for QC lab results, and just data silos. Oof.
I think that it's spread between the four.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's like it's all of the above. I've seen many processes that we work with a lot of different customers in this space, and different flavors and different setups. And the most common thing I see is PQR, of people saying they have a master Excel file and it's got 50 tabs, and then they explain their process. They go to LLMs for this data, and then they go to Pi for this data, and then they take a screenshot from Spotfire, then they go to Power BI, download something, and then they go into LLMs,
And
it's never ending.
that's true. And also, I don't know if you have the same experience, but in my experience doing projects, product quality review, usually the annual document is just a bureaucratic document that is not used for the real expected topic that was intended for at the beginning. The annual product quality review, as everyone knows, was introduced by the regulators in order to have a continuous improvement of the process. So analyzing and making the study and the research on the process of the product and the batches of the year, we can shrink the limits of specification, so we can make a more robust process. But we don't have time to that because we're spending a lot of time just getting the data. But using AI now, it's very easy to make this continuous improvement in the process. Now we have the answers. Review
Exactly.
manual paper. Please go
Does
ahead.
look like, yeah, manual paper is the winner here. We hear that one often in the OOS, so that makes a lot of sense. And data silos I assume, are a subset of all those anyway.
True.
And the good thing is that one where I showed the adaptive biologics screen with the phase context in there, we kind of call that's our digital batch review application, if you will. Because when you're reviewing the manual and paper, imagine if all of the components of that recipe in your master batch record were digitized. Then that means you can map those different elements to your process. So if you have the context of your process available as well, an agent can then leverage that process context relative to your data lake, and then making that review process very, very accelerated.
Yes. Thank you so much for the for answering the questions, the pull question. So maybe it's time for the demo. So just the last slide. This is the difference between the classical process, making a question, making or preparing the ticket to submit and ask for the data. This is the ticket. So people is working on that. The IT teams, they are calling to the lab teams to get the data coming from the LLMs and so on. They spend days, and afterward you have your report, your spreadsheet, or your dashboard after weeks. Well, if you do the same, making the question in a natural language, the agentic AI systems work on that and connecting all the sources and is even preparing the app for you, the app or the report, whatever you do. So Kevin now is going to show you precisely that.
All right. All right, let's see. Can you all see the screen here? All right, perfect. Okay, so this is an example of when I said bridging the IT and OT data. So one of the first applications we tend to deploy for customers that are looking for, they need to explore their data and they need to perform root cause analysis. Many of you go into your historian and you see that same cyclical trend over and over repeated. And so this is a simple way to be able to align your data and just start to investigate it. So what we're looking at is imagine you have each row is one batch. We have the phase data coming from the EBR system. We have data coming from the ERP yield. And then we have the contextualized features that we've engineered, that we've created based on the context. So we actually have the ammonia average, viscosity, average, and some others. And there's many other parameters associated with the batch, but obviously we're just showing a few here, contextualized from different systems. Now, we've also defined, there's different ways to define the quality. So here we have a golden, a bad, and a good. Now, there's sometimes we create this using an AI model. Sometimes we'll use a supervised or an unsupervised approach to actually cluster or predict if it's a golden, good, or bad batch. Um, or you can create simple thresholds based on your rules, based on your CQAs and based on your final yield. You may create a composite metric that says if final yield is above 30 and this CQA is above 95%, then therefore it's golden. It just depends on your objectives with the analysis. So sometimes we analytically create this target, and sometimes we define it with the SMEs. So now we can select, so I've selected a golden, a good, and then another good batch here. And you can naturally adjust other features, time ranges, and sort and filter the table if you'd like. So then you would actually fetch the elements. So here you can choose like all elements. Here I've chosen pH, temperature, and the ammonia concentration. And then you can actually isolate it to different phases of the batch. And once again, this goes back to your context table. So if you have context available and you understand, you can identify these phases, there has to be a mapping exercise done between, this entity, this start time aligns with, phase one, and another start time aligns with phase two, etc. So these are well defined. And then you can also add in other events. So you can mix data from different systems. You could even have an event as an operator comment, and you could display a comment on the graph. Here we're just going to display the phase start times and end times. Okay, so now we've selected the three parameters. So it aligns each of the three parameters. You see the three parameters on the left, the y-axis, all stacked in different charts. You see the context events available. And the ammonia average, for example, was computed between this first dash line and the second dash line. And then that's how we create this field up here, the ammonia average. So, and then you can begin to perform and at least do some exploratory investigation. So here we can immediately see we've actually grouped these batch phases by quality. And that's critical here is to have these additional views. So we've requested a group by quality as well. And what that does is now all the good batches are in green and all the golden are in, well, gold. And you can see from the second graph, it's a little more visible here that this, the time point there, the duration is significantly shorter on the golden batch. So that's also something you can compute the durations of all the phases and then do that in a more robust analysis. You could look at the correlations of each phase relative to yield, for example. That's a very common analysis that we would do. Another one, you could look at the range of just some examples of the types of charts. You can see each batch plotted separately here to just look at the spread of these things. So we know, for example, that 81 is our golden batch. And so you can just look at the spreads at least to see if anything looks anomalous. I can tell the pH has a higher range, for example, but the temperature on average is a bit lower. Now, if you, once again, you could group by quality here, and then you can immediately convert these boxes. So you could group like 20 good batches versus 10 golden batches to see if there's any major discrepancies in the variance of these different parameters as well. Another one we mentioned this one. I may have timed out here, but another app that just in general, if you wanted to drill in a different way, the same types of parameters. So, we're pulling in the same master recipe. You can look at various parameters here. I've chosen a few CPPs, a CQA, a couple events. We're even bringing in AI model predictions, where for this particular process, we're actually deploying a prediction at 5 different steps of this reaction. And then you can bring in all the different components you want to analyze, apply some start dates, and then you could actually look at all of these different parameters in a different type of view, more of like an executive summary type view. And this, once again, was built using the Agentic Studio app, and it's published and then available within this the apps section of the Aizon platform here. So just wanted to give you a flavor. There's a lot of different applications, and really there's no limit. There's an infinite number of applications that can be built because now you can use natural language to build your own. So often what we'll do is we'll leverage our own Agentic Studio for customers, build very robust applications, fine-tune these and build these to exact specification. And we'll build a dashboard template, for example, like this would be a template. And then you can more readily deploy to other sites. So maybe you would want to start with one process and you really build that out. And then we would build it in a scalable way, and then you could apply it to new products or new sites, and you could begin to integrate additional insights as well. So that was the demo, and I really hope everyone has enjoyed it and learned some stuff today, and happy to have additional conversations on it too. I think we have some additional time for a Q&A.
I'm still answering questions in the chat, so I'm so sorry. I'm trying to answer all of them, but I'm going one by one. So probably we can do that later.
Okay.
Excellent. So maybe you can choose some of the most relevant ones and do some live Q&A answer. Maybe you could choose some questions that you think could be relevant to the most of the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, there's one: if a document is written by AI but reviewed by a human, must it be clearly indicated that it is AI generated? Right now, we encourage that, and we would put in disclaimers for if it was like an application where AI is producing all of, like, for example, the batch review, where it's spotting, 100 anomalies relative to SOPs, for example. That would be something I would definitely recommend a disclaimer and say, hey, a human in the loop. This was generated by AI and should be reviewed by human.
Yes, I don't know if you are also participating in scientific projects, but this is one of the rules that in science today is required. Every time that we use any LLM or AI output as part of our job, we have to make the reference. In Europe, it's mandatory. So you can lose your job if you don't add this disclaimer. So Aizon is always adding this disclaimer, not only in the user manuals or in the documentation, also in the own application.
All right. And actually, we had one about environmental monitoring system, and we're actually starting a project for that. And we did implement and we've planned out a system for that already. And for the environmental monitoring, there's particle counts and different sensors and different rooms. And we're going to be building a monitoring system based on that and actually applying predictive AI on top of that to be able to predict if there's looking at the trends in the different sensors to be able to get ahead of any sort uh, of out of trend or out of spec there related to environment monitoring. So we do have experience there.
Yeah. We have a very nice question that says, what are the limits of the natural language prompt? Can I ask complex why questions? Like, for example, did the yield drop in batch A versus batch B? Let me say that there is not limits in the prompt engineer. I think that the only thing that we have to do is to be very concise and accurate when you build the prompt. So probably in just one prompt text, you won't get the right answer, I'm pretty sure. So probably you will need to elaborate and make a drill down and to have more or provide more color and more adjectives and more nuances to the prompt engineering. Remember that the agentic AI is always providing a loop, so it's expecting for the interaction with you. So as many interactions you do dynamically with agentic AI, the answer will be more accurate. So there is no limit. It depends on the prompt engineering that you're applying. More questions.
There's one related to kind of biologics or biopharma. So we work with all sorts, and bio is one of our favorites, me and Toni, because we always say there's a lot of variability, and we love variability because we always say AI is the perfect tool to study the variability of your process and control for the variability. That's what we always explain is that that's the most important is when you have so much variability we've seen organizations make decisions to change process parameters based on all of the batches. But what we'll do is we'll apply AI to control for a subset, control for the variability of the raw material. And then when you cluster and group these batches, you'll often find conflicting correlations. And sometimes maybe for a subset of your batches, you should be doing an operation in one way, and another you should be doing it slightly different. So you can even use AI to help you adapt and and work a bit more dynamically with your process.
We have another question that says, could you give a small guidance for validation of visual inspection? Well, it cannot be small. It is very long, but you can download for free as an open source resource from the Bioforum, the AI model validation guidelines. But just to let you know very quickly, you should prepare a design of experiments with the data that you have in order to train the model. And you have to cover the happy path, the corner cases, but you have to define a very well your design of experiments in order to train the model and to demonstrate that this training and this testing of the model is robust enough. This is highlight. We have more questions. For example, do you want to take one, Kevin?
Yeah, I was going to say, can review raw HPLC data. Agents can certainly review raw data. Same thing as like what I was saying with different documentation, SOPs versus batch records. So definitely sifting through complex data structured, unstructured, just a bunch of text. Agents are very good at helping to parse that out and make sense of it.
Taking the one that says, will it be possible to predict the changes that the algorithms are doing? My answer, no. So as a quality officer, the system will be unpredictable and therefore a bit too risky. Let me say that when we're working with deterministic models are allowed in Europe for GXP purposes, you can have this kind of limits of acceptance. It's the same with LLMs. If you want to validate and you want to manage, qualify your AI model, your LLM model, you have to know that the output will be probably different for the same input. The same question could lead to different answers. But the essence, the content, the human content of the answer should be always between those limits that you accept as valid answer. So isn't the same that any kind of discussion, human discussion you can have with experts.
Mm-hmm. And AI models specifically can be validated and deterministic, because if you choose the algorithm, you will get the same answer every time when the model is trained, and so we have a model card system when you upload the model, and we track all of those key components about the AI model to make it to give you the proper artifacts to be able to validate. But Tony's point is very correct. Like and especially from a deterministic standpoint, the types of models we would implement would be ones that would always give you either an answer within your current limits, or it would say, hey, the model did not provide a sufficient output, we delegate to the human. And if the model does provide an appropriate output within range, the human still has the ability to override potentially, and it's additional information to the human that they can leverage.
Yes. We have another question, says, how can the annual product quality review be generated if it cannot be used in Europe for regulations? Well, let me say that you can use agentic AI systems for non-GXP purposes. So if you collect the data and you organize the data and you show the graphics of the data using agentic AI, you can do it. So you will use this information in order to adapt it and to transform it and to understanding and to prepare by humans. So humans will always make the final decision and they will operate. But there are mechanic things like collecting the data coming from different data sources. That is something that you can do with LLMs. Would it be possible to use the AI models to identify the data integrity of a batch? Yes, the answer is yes, and we are doing that in a very nice way. And also the model is able to detect other important things that not only data integrity. For example, we are identifying which operators are good in specific phases and which operators they are better in other operations. These kind of things happen. I think that we're in the top of the hour, or we have more time for more questions.
So we are on top of the hour, but if you would like to take another question that you feel that you must answer, we can give you another minute. But otherwise, we should start finalizing, and you can consider answering some of the question later through an email or some summary.
Okay. Maybe just the last one. To what extent is the European Medicine Agency expecting usage of AI when it comes to quality management system? Well, let me share one thing. It's very important that because the European Medicine Agency is using internally AI, they already shared that with the audience during the AI workshop in November. It was a public workshop, and they describe how they are using AI, for example, for reviewing electronic common technical documents, or they are using internally for analyzing documentation coming from labs. So the expectation from the European Medicine Agency is that we are more efficient and we're using AI in a more controlled way, being more efficient and more efficacy, thinking always in the patient. So believe me, this is the main driver. All the risk assessment that we have to do when we are using AI in GXP or non-GXP, if we work for pharma, the final driver always must be the patient safety and quality and efficiency.
Thank you very much, Toni, Kevin, for this very interesting explanation about how agentic AI works. I think we learned a lot on that.
Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for the opportunity.